Hello and welcome to everyone. We are very pleased Aging Out Institute is to start our series of interviews with our 2018 awards program judges today. We have with us Steve Walsh, and he is the Director of Educational Opportunity Program at California State University in Bakersfield, and we're very excited to have him with us. As I mentioned, this is the first. We're going to have a series of these interviews on Facebook so that you can meet many of the judges, get to know their backgrounds, why they connected with this program and wanted to be a judge, and some of their thoughts on the benefits of having this kind of awards program. So with that, welcome, Steve. Very happy to have you with us today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Just to get started, could you please tell us a little bit about what it is that you do in life that relates to foster care?
Absolutely. I'm the director of the Educational Opportunity Program, as you mentioned. That's an equity program. I know it exists in a lot of states. Ours is a statewide program for our California State University system, one of the three systems of higher education, public education in California. So we have 23 campuses in our system, and each one of those has an EOP, or Educational Opportunity Program. Starting about 2010, even for some campuses much earlier than that, they started writing for funding for Guardian Scholars or Renaissance Scholars type programs that would work specifically with the foster youth population. So our grant was funded in 2011. We call ours Guardian Scholars. And so since then, about 7 years now, I've been the principal grant writer and reporter for that program, running it as one of the sub-programs of EOP. So we had always been working with that population. of 20 years working in EOP, and every year we would have foster youth who were emancipating out of their foster care placement, whether it be a group home or a foster home, coming to the university to study and really running into obstacles with housing, especially summer housing, winter break housing. So it was really nice in 2011 when we got that funding to make sure that we addressed the housing need for our really at-risk population.
Right. Well, that's great. Could you please explain a little bit about Guardian Scholars? Is that a program that other universities take advantage of as well? So if we happen to have a university watching this, is this something that they can look into? Is there an organization that helps universities get started in that and so forth?
Definitely. I would definitely want to give a shout out to our primary funder who gave us the initial funding. Is the California Wellness Foundation. They had given money to Fresno State, which is a pretty nationwide known for football in our CSU system. And we essentially met with their foster youth program, kind of copied what they were doing, submitted an application based on the same criteria they had submitted, and we were funded through that. So they're private funders. The Stewart Foundation does a lot of work. The Casey Family Foundation does a lot of work. Complete College America, there's a lot going on in California. We're governed by the California State University's Chancellor's Office, or CSU system. So we actually have system-wide representation to make sure that the foster youth population receives services on all 23 campuses, whether they receive outside funding or not. So the CSU maintains a contact list of who to contact if you are a foster youth or you're a provider of care for foster youth, to make sure those students have the information they need to get into school.
Okay, that explains why when I was looking up some universities and the types of programs that they offer, I saw University of California, this long list of programs offered in California.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, a lot more attention in the past, I'd say 5 to 6 years, much more attention to develop these programs and make them systematic, to make them a part of just your normal operations, that it's on the application for undergraduate admission. There's a box for foster youth. Same thing with EOP. And we're starting to see that a lot of activity in the community colleges too. We have 120 something, mess with the number, 126, 123 community colleges in California that are all adopting that same sort of language on their applications, and really shining a light on this population that needs a little bit more attention than the average incoming student.
That's great. That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. Thank you. All right. Well, let's start talking about this awards program. the AOI National Awards, they're going to be recognizing both foster parents and organizations that are seeing success through the work that they're doing, helping youth age out of foster care or supporting them after they've aged out. What motivated you to say yes when we approached you about being a judge for next year's launch of this program?
Well, it was great to be asked. That was the first thing. It was flattering to be selected. I said yes because I think this entire field, and when I talk about it, I mean the foster care system nationwide, whether it be individual families, whether it be programs that are grant-funded, programs that are publicly funded, just philanthropic people. I mean, CASA workers or court-appointed special advocates. I'm not sure if they have that wherever you're watching this from. That's what it's called here in our area. Advocates who work with youth being taken out of their homes and sit in court with them. There's so many people doing so much great work, and it's a field with what I call few really overt rewards. There's not a whole lot except for the personal satisfaction of knowing you've helped somebody. But those satisfactions kind of are built on intangible things, knowing that you're making change in the world, that you've affected someone's life and make these incremental changes in their life to raise them up and bring them up. You don't always get the accolades, the appreciation shown to you that you might need to keep going to take on another, to be a special advocate for another kid and next year, to take on another foster youth out of the system and bringing them into your home. Sometimes you need that motivation, and I think an external award saying we recognize the work that you're doing and we think it's great might be that little spark that keeps that person doing that great work for another year, another 2 years, another 5 years. So that's why I said yes. I think there's a lot of value to it, and in the fact that there might be some shared practices that come out of it too.
Right. And we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Well, we're very glad that you joined our group. We have 8 judges all together from all over the country, and there are 4 categories, and so 2 judges will be judging one category, a pair for each category. But before we get into those details, you've kind of alluded to this, but there are going to be several months of looking over applications and making your decisions. Well, what are you looking forward to the most about being a judge and going through this process?
It's almost like when you go to a regional or a national conference, and there's few opportunities you get to share information with people who are doing the exact same thing you're doing. Those opportunities don't come around very often. I think that's why, and I work in academia, and a lot of faculty love going to conferences because only a few people in their university and in their circle are working on the same subjects and fields that they did all their graduate work in, their PhD work in, and are now teaching. So this is kind of that same opportunity for people providing great service. So what I'm looking forward to is the fact that I get to hear all these great practices people are doing, discussing them with other judges to find out if, that's being done in their area or if this is truly an innovation. And if we do see this true innovation, being able to store that on the AOI website and have that information there so that someone can log in, see it, and think, oh my gosh, this addresses all the issues we've been facing for the past few years, but we couldn't solve that. Now someone has solved that for us. So I want to be able to share this and to steal it, to steal it and put it into practice. I think that's what I'm looking forward to seeing happen with this. Great.
Well, that's exactly what's going to happen. So something to look forward to toward the end of next year, definitely. So going back to those categories, the 4 categories for the awards program are education, housing, employment, and relationships. From your perspective, why is education, which is the category that you're going to be judging, why is it important to include that, helping youth prepare for education and supporting them and helping them finish their education? Why is that so important that we include that in this awards program?
Well, the other categories are definitely important. When you look at the homeless rate of foster youth coming out of the system, it's dismal. It's bad in our area. It's bad in our state. each of those areas is important. I'm obviously biased being in higher education for the education piece of it, because I wouldn't do this job for as long as I've been doing it if I didn't really believe that education is the key to breaking the cycle of poverty. Our Education Opportunity Program is for first-generation low-income students who are trying to really break a cycle. It's been systemic in their lives that there is no money. They're at a deficit when they come in, even though you think, oh, you're broke because you have $0. They really don't. They're in the hole. Any money they get financial aid wise typically goes into buy down some sort of familial debt. They make these interdependent decisions with their families. So when I see education changing a life and bringing a life up, breaking a cycle of poverty, it's not just for that one person who's received that education. You see a direct effect on their family, on their brothers and sisters, and their own children, because now they have that expectation that they need to do what older brother, older sister, or mom or dad did. And that also grows into their neighborhood. We have students who go back and teach in their neighborhood to be the best teacher that neighborhood has ever had, because they understand the population, they understand their background, and they're sensitive to the needs of their students. So to me, you're making this worldwide change with one person that person might not even see. So to me, education obviously is vastly important, so we can get these students out of that cycle where it just keeps repeating and repeating. We want to see them become independent, self-sustaining, emotionally well, and get into a relationship where they start their own family, but have a great career, and their kids won't have to worry about the things that they went through. That's my ultimate goal. So education, to me, again, I'm biased, but that's one of the keys out of that scenario and a way to break that cycle. Yeah, absolutely. Well, how does your own work or even personal experiences, how do you believe that will support you and help you in this process of judging the applications in the education category? I mean, obviously you're in higher education and you're in this work, but maybe a little specific around that. Well, I hope I'll be a good judge for it. My experiences are with those students who are in transition. We go out and work with students in their senior year in the high schools to make sure that they're doing their applications, that they're taking the right coursework, that they know about our program. So we really don't just sit here and wait for students to come to us. We actually go out to them. And so when we receive a student who's applied in and we bring them in for the summer before they start their fall semester, we're seeing that transition. We're seeing what level of preparation that student was provided. What are independent living skills? What are their financial literacy skills? Because we actually see them being put to the test. It's not just an afternoon workshop where we talk about financial aid, or an afternoon workshop where you talk about how to cook for yourself and shop and manage a budget. Now they're doing it. They're receiving aid. They're working a job. They're trying to balance rent or tuition, book costs, sharing books. So what we get to see is all the great work that people have done that came before us, if it took, if it actually set in. There's a lot of work we have to do. Some of our students come in much better prepared than others. So it's a mixed bag. I'm hoping that experience and seeing for years this transition, maybe extended foster care benefits can support someone until 21 now, but you're still an adult at 18. And we've been focused on this transition of becoming an adult, being a high school student to being an adult now for so long. I hope that gives me some insight into what other programs are doing to prepare students for that change.
Right. Well, I would think so. I think you bring a lot of great experience and knowledge with you to the judging, and I'm sure that will be a great help to you and your ability to review and score and assess the applications as you're going through them. So the next question is, after the winners are announced, and we talked about this briefly, we're going to capture the strategies that they're using in their homes or in their organizations into what we're calling strategy papers right now. So these papers, they're going to be written up and they're going to be shared on the Aging Out Institute website with anyone who wants to come and look at them. What do you think is the greatest benefit of doing this? Not just giving out an award and applauding the people who are doing great things, but taking this next step.
That's really great, and I think it's key to what's so wonderful about this whole awards program is information sharing leads to stealing, as I mentioned earlier, stealing in a good sense, and this theft of a great idea, which is most people would give it freely, I'm sure. What it leads to is an implementation of effective practices. Becomes a breeding ground for these practices to spread if they are truly beneficial to the students who are receiving them, or the young children who are receiving them. So I like this idea of, I guess you call it like a crowdsourcing. It's almost like you give a problem to the entire world, and the entire world comes up with an amazing solution to it.
Right.
It gives an opportunity to crowdsource the major issues that we all face with our growing and very high needs, high touch population of foster youth, and even homeless youth. This extends to a lot of different populations that really need help, and it becomes this. It's not just the judges and AOI who are doing this. It's this crowdsourcing of this adjudication of these great ideas and putting them into practice, and it gives people an opportunity to test certain ideas and say, hey, this is what they did in Dade County, and we're going to implement it here in Kern County and see if it works. And that's how ideas grow. That's how ideas spread. And I think coming up with that central place to have that, so anyone can log in, anyone can read those papers. It also gives you some the research you need to do to go write a grant, or to go to your director of your program or your CEO. And say, hey, look at what they're doing in this other area. They won an award for this. Why can't we do this here? I've been saying this for 5 years. It becomes that proof that you need, that you've been seeking, that might turn the tables to get a program you really wanted to do for a long time actually funded and started in your area or in your organization.
Right. That's a good point. It's a very good point. All right. Well, the window for folks who may not be aware yet, the window for applying for the awards is January and February, those 2 months, and in 2018. So if we have folks who are watching this interview, Steve, who are interested possibly in applying, not sure, maybe specifically for education, but maybe one of the other categories as well, why should they apply for an award? What would be your encouragement to them?
Well, motivation personally, it goes back to what I was saying about needing that spark of energy, that accolade, or that pat on the back almost, to think, oh, I am doing good work. And I that self-efficacy you feel when someone else outside of you compliments you and says you've done a good job, might be what keeps you motivated to do very difficult work. It's often not rewarding work. In a lot of senses, the pay's not great, and the emotions you go home with are not all that great all the time, and you might want to give it up. I mean, we don't want that. We want to keep you going, keep those great ideas flowing. And I think there's a duty to share if something works well. You have an obligation to share that out, and this is a great vehicle to do that. And I think if you're debating, do I want to apply this or not, you look at January, especially if you're in the field of education. You probably just started a new semester, whether you're at a high school or a university or college. New semester starting, and you're going to be really busy in January. But February is kind of a dead time. It gets cold. You can't go out, so bundle up and turn your laptop on and start typing away. It's a good time to write and get something submitted, to really also reflect. Maybe you just closed out a budget year. You can reflect on what you did in that budget year. You just wrote a grant report. Maybe you can extrapolate that, bring those elements, the evidence-based practices, into your application. So I think it's a good time to focus on what you're going to do for the upcoming year. I think it's timed well, and I think it's, for those of us in education, it's kind of a dead time where you do get a little bit of a lull in February, where you can use that to not just sing the praises of yourself, but also the other people in your organization, other people who do what you do, implement something in a greater organization or greater field. So I'd say this, get your laptop ready and get that application in, because we want to hear about everything you're doing.
Right, right. That's a good point. I actually hadn't realized that about the institutions of higher education, that would be a pretty decent time to fill out this kind of application. And I will let people know it's not a quick application. This is not a nomination award. This is an application that organizations or foster parents who want to apply fill out for themselves. You get to brag a little. You get to tell about your program, your strategies, and explain it in detail in this application. So it is a thorough application, and it will take a little time to complete. So I would encourage anyone who is filling it out, take a look at it in early January and gauge how long you think it's going to take, because you have till the end of February to submit. So you can take your time, fill it in a little bit here and there, if that's a better way for you to do it. And I always will encourage people to have somebody look at it before you submit it. Have them proof it, give you some suggestions and feedback. So allow yourself a little time to get that as well. So wonderful, good. Well, thank you, Steve, so much. I appreciate your participation in today's interview. Do you have any final thoughts on the awards program, on Aging Out Institute, on your own work, on foster youth, anything at all that you'd like to close with today?
Yeah, if you're watching this, it's because you're interested in this subject, or you're working in this field, and I just want to say you're doing great work. Keep it up. Keep being an advocate for your population, whatever that is. We know what your population is, but whatever field and whatever impact you're having, please be an advocate for that group, and use this as an opportunity to share what works, because we might be a long way away from you, and I wouldn't necessarily run into you unless I happen to be traveling. And how would I know about your great idea? How would I know about the wonderful things you're doing unless you share it in this venue? And going back to the application, the application is great. The wording is great. The questions are really, I think, what we as judges are going to be asking you. Even if you don't reply to it, we want the answers to those questions that are asked in the application. So I encourage you to really look at it, and like Lynn, like you said, answer those questions maybe alongside you writing your grant report in January as you're doing your end of the year summary. Have that application side by side, so you can think, oh, well, how does this address the question that AOI is asking me for this application? That way you're doing two things at once. But what I think we don't want to see is just your grant report, because that's written to a different audience. What we're trying to see is, what are your practices? What works for you? How do you show that it works? How does this spirit carry on? How is it sustainable? How is it replicable in other places? Which is a little bit different language, having written a lot of grant reports. You're reporting kind of headcount data, stuff like that. So I'd stay away from that and really just think about those questions that are on the application. Think about us who are reading those responses, and really just do it in the spirit of sharing out great ideas. And hopefully we can reward you for your innovation and everything you've done.
That's great. That's great. Thanks very much. And I also want to share that we also hope that even the application process itself will help organizations and foster parents think about how they could, because we're always trying to improve what we do, right? So the application, it's asking so many detailed questions that some of those questions might get you to think, we could improve in this area. I never thought about it in this way before. And so we're hoping even the process of filling out the application will start the ideas flowing for how there could be improvements even in your existing program. Even though you're applying for an award, how it is today, we always are looking to make improvements with what we do.
Definitely. I totally agree.
All right. Well, I thank you very much. That's all the time that we have today. I really appreciate, Steve, you being with us. Glad everybody had a chance to meet you as one of the judges of the awards program next year. And for our viewers, if there is something that you would like to do to help us with this program and getting started, there is a way. There's a sponsorship opportunity. The lowest amount is just $100 to be a bronze sponsor. You could just go to the agingoutinstitute.org website and look for the sponsorship link, and you'll find all the information that you need there. We also are going to have a crowdfunding campaign in December and January to help raise money to launch this program as well. So you can look for that. We're very excited that we have company that's actually going to be donating some household items to help us with that crowdfunding. The idea being that, for every $200 or so that we raise, they're going to donate items to youth aging out of foster care. So this first company that we have engaged as a partner, they make cookware. So it would be cookware to help a young person set up their kitchen. And so that's something that we're very excited about as well. So you can look for that. So thank you everybody for watching today. We have another interview next week with John DeGarmo, so you can look for that one, but we're also recording these so you can catch it later on as well. So I thank you all very much. You can watch the events that are coming up on the Aging Out Institute Facebook page under events. You'll see which ones are coming up, see who's coming up in this series of interviews next. And we hope that you all can join us for our future interviews as well. Thanks again, Steve, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.